The town of Millstone was small enough that secrets didn't last long, but judgments did. People didn't whisper much in Millstone, they talked. And when they talked, their words had weight, their glances cut deep. On a crisp morning in late autumn, as the first chill rolled in over Main Street, a woman named Sarah Whitmore walked her little boy to school, her diner uniform still wrinkled from the early shift. Behind her, curtains twitched, lips moved, and eyes followed. Someone across the street said it softly but loud enough for her to hear. She has no shame. She didn't turn around. She didn't need to. Sarah had learned that silence was her best armor, but behind her calm face was a storm she could no longer control. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and giving people second chances, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel. Because stories like this one remind us all how important a little empathy can be. Sarah Whitmore had once been the pride of Millstone High. Bright, gentle, with a voice that could light up any choir performance. She dreamed of leaving the small town to study music in Nashville, but dreams often collide with reality. When she was 19, she met a man named Eric, older, charming, promising the world in words wrapped with lies. She thought love was enough. It wasn't. By 21, she was standing in the same diner she'd worked in as a teenager. Only now she wasn't saving up for college. She was saving up for diapers. Eric had left 6 months after their son Caleb was born. He'd said he couldn't handle this kind of life. Sarah had learned that this kind of life meant responsibility. From then on, she did everything alone. The early morning shifts at the diner, the night classes she could barely afford, the whispered judgments from customers who pitied her in front of her face and mocked her behind her back. Poor girl, she should have known better. She still wears that uniform like she's proud of it. Proud? No, not proud. But she wasn't ashamed either. She couldn't afford to be. Shame didn't feed her boy. Every morning, she walked Caleb to the school bus stop, then hurried back to the diner. Her hands cracked from washing dishes. Her feet ached from double shifts. But she smiled when customers walked in, even when they refused to meet her eyes. The diner had become her world, a small, greasy corner of Millstone that barely paid the bills, but it was honest work. Still, in a town like Millstone, people love stories more than truth. And Sarah's story, as told by others, had long since been rewritten. They said she chased after men. They said she was careless, that she brought her hardship on herself. No one knew that every dollar she made went to Caleb's school books, his lunches, his dreams. One afternoon, when Caleb was 6, he came home crying. A classmate had said his mom wasn't a good woman. Sarah's heart cracked in places no one could see. She pulled him close, brushed the tears from his cheeks, and said softly, "We're good people, Caleb, even if they don't see it yet." But that night, after he fell asleep, she sat by the window and wept quietly. Because there were days when she didn't see it either. The next morning, she went back to work as always. The diner was busy, truckers, families, a few of the town's more respectable ladies sitting by the window booth. Sarah took their orders, refilled their coffee, and tried not to overhear when they said, "Imagine being her." "Some people just don't have any shame," one of them laughed. "At least she's finally learned to keep her head down." That night, when she closed the diner, her manager handed her an envelope. It wasn't her paycheck. It was a letter from the bank, late payments, mortgage overdue. She'd been behind for months, trying to keep up, hoping tips would make the difference. They hadn't. She was about to lose the small house her parents had left her. The next morning, she made a choice. That would change everything. She went to the diner earlier than usual, not to work, but to ask for help. The owner, Mr. Franklin, was a kind man in his 60s who'd known her since she was a girl. He sighed deeply when she asked for an advance. "Sarah," he said, "you know I wish I could, but business is slow. I'm barely keeping the place open." She nodded, thanked him anyway, and walked out. The sun had barely risen. The streets were empty except for the quiet rustle of leaves. For the first time, Sarah felt like Millstone itself was turning its back on her. Days passed. Then weeks. Notices kept coming. She tried applying for other jobs, cleaning offices, helping at a store, but the same small-town faces looked at her and saw only the gossip, not the woman behind it. Then one Sunday morning, something happened that would shift the story completely. Sarah was walking with Caleb to the bus stop when an elderly woman stumbled outside the diner, clutching her chest. Without thinking, Sarah ran to her side, calling for help. The woman was Mrs. Darnell, the same one who had once called her a bad influence. Sarah stayed with her, kept her calm, and when the ambulance came, she rode along, holding her hand, whispering, "You'll be okay." For 2 days, Sarah visited the hospital after every shift, bringing flowers from her garden. When Mrs. Darnell finally woke fully, tears welled in her eyes. "You didn't have to do that for me," she said weakly. Sarah smiled faintly. "You would have done the same." Mrs. Darnell didn't reply, but the next week, the whispers around town began to change. For the first time, people didn't speak her name with pity or disdain, but with surprise. The story they'd told about her didn't fit anymore. How could a shameless woman be the one who saved someone's life? Still, Sarah didn't expect anything to change. People forget kindness fast in places that cling to judgment. But this time, something lingered. A local journalist, a young woman named Claire Jennings, heard about what happened and came to the diner to interview Sarah for the town paper. Sarah resisted at first. She didn't want attention. But Claire said sometimes the people who stay quiet have the stories that need to be heard the most. A week later, the headline appeared on the front page of the Millstone Gazette. "Local waitress saves elderly woman's life. Humility in action." Sarah didn't think much of it until people started showing up at the diner just to thank her. Even the same women who'd gossiped before began to soften their tone. The air in Millstone felt different, lighter. Then one evening, as Sarah was closing up, she found a small envelope left on the counter. Inside was a handwritten note for the woman with the biggest heart in town. "Consider this a little help to keep your home. Friends from Millstone." Inside were cash donations from several townspeople, including Mrs. Darnell and Mr. Franklin. Tears blurred Sarah's vision as she held the envelope to her chest. For years she had carried the weight of their judgment, and now that same town was holding her up. That night, she and Caleb sat on their porch, the first stars peeking through the sky. He leaned against her shoulder and whispered, "Mom, are we okay now?" She smiled softly. "Yeah, baby, we're okay now." Word of Sarah's quiet heroism spread beyond Millstone. Claire's story was shared online, and strangers began sending letters. Single mothers, widows, young women who saw themselves in Sarah's struggle. Each letter ended with the same message: "Thank you for reminding us that strength doesn't always shout." Months later, the diner where she worked started a small charity program to help single parents in the community. Mr. Franklin insisted on naming it Sarah's Table. Every Friday, free meals were offered to families in need. Sarah managed the program with the same care she once used to carry her own burdens, quietly, steadfastly, without asking for recognition. But she didn't need applause. The greatest reward was seeing Caleb smile, his laughter returning, his pride in her visible in every small gesture. One afternoon, as she walked him home from school, a group of people waved from across the street. No whispers this time, no judgment, just genuine smiles. Sarah paused, looked up at the sky, and whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure who she was thanking. Maybe God, maybe life, maybe the version of herself who had refused to give up, no matter how heavy the days had been. Sarah Whitmore's story became a quiet legend in Millstone, not because she sought redemption, but because she embodied it. She proved that strength isn't about fighting louder than others, it's about standing tall when the world tries to make you small. And though the world can be cruel, there are moments when it remembers how to be kind. All it takes is one person refusing to lose faith in the goodness that still exists. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more real human stories that remind us what compassion truly means. Special request: before you go, comment below with the words "kindness still matters" to show your support for people like Sarah everywhere, those fighting silent battles we may never see, but whose strength deserves to be known. Because sometimes the people the world calls shameless are the ones who carry the most beautiful hearts of all.